Good evening. Welcome to Economics 330, Global Trade and Political Economy, Medgar Evers College, City University of New York. Our 5-minute grace period has now elapsed, and this begins the formal section of today's lecture. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. And in the previous 2 weeks, we have covered the following two topics: international monetary relations and global trade relations. As we continue in this 10th module and our third of 3 segments, we will focus on trade regionalization. Some scholars see regional trade agreements, or RTAs, which is distinct from multilateralism as expressed by the World Trade Organization, or WTO, as a stepping stone to eventual worldwide liberalization of trade, while others see them as obstacles to global free trade. Economists describe RTAs as existing at 5 stages or levels of integration. The first stage or first level of integration is the most intrusive and the most minimal, and this will be a free trade agreement. This is where member states eliminate tariffs and other restrictions on substantially all trade with each other. But each member can retain its own trade policies towards non-member states. In this way, say with the case of USMCA, US, Canada, Mexico, each individual country has the liberty to impose trade restrictions towards other countries that are not part of the USMCA. Thus, a free trade area poses less of a threat to national sovereignty and is more acceptable to states with politically sensitive relationships. And here is what that means. As I just explained, in free trade area agreements, states still maintain sovereignty because they are in a position to negotiate trade agreements with other countries that are not part of the free trade area. And that is sovereignty. As you will soon now learn in today's class, other more integrated forms of regional trade agreements can begin to erode the sovereignty of independent states. So the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, as I stated, is an important example of an FTA. The second kind of regional trade agreement is a customs union, or CU. A customs union has the same characteristics as a free trade area, plus a common external tariff, or CET, towards outside states. Put differently, in a customs union, member countries do not charge tariffs on goods traded between them, and they set the same tariffs on goods imported from third-party countries or countries outside of the customs union territory. A customs union normally creates institutions to administer the common tariff, and the common tariff members have less ability to make independent decisions. This less ability to make independent decisions would be a degree of loss of sovereignty. And that's why anything above a free trade area becomes a lot more contentious to negotiate. Compared with free trade area agreements, the number of customs unions is relatively small. The most important customs union is the European Union. But as we will soon learn, the European Union is more than a customs union. For instance, the European Union is in customs union with Andorra, San Marino, and Turkey, with the exceptions of certain goods. And while Turkey's membership of a customs union with the EU is recognized as having played a significant part in its transitioning its economy from agrarian to industrial. However, the free trade area agreements signed by the EU do not extend to Turkey. This is an important point to note. As such, EU's customs union extends to non-EU member countries, i.e. Turkey, San Marino, and Andorra. Consequently, EU's free trade area partners can export to Turkey tariff-free, while maintaining tariffs on Turkish goods imported into EU's free trade area partners, unless they also concluded a separate free trade area agreement with Turkey. The EU and Turkey, however, are now in negotiations to amend their customs union agreements to add Turkey to EU's present and future free trade areas. So the third category is common market, or CM, sorry. A common market has the same characteristics as a customs union, plus the free mobility of factors of production, i.e. labor and capital. So the major distinction between common markets and customs union is the free movement of especially labor and capital. So people can move across member states of a common market. They could get employment, they could live there without being hassled. As I mentioned, the European Union is more than a customs union. It is indeed a common market that includes free mobility of factors of production. Again, these include labor and capital. The increased labor mobility induces members to establish similar health, safety, educational, social security standards so that no country's workers have a competitive advantage. Successful common markets are rare because they require high levels of integration, such as the EU. So again, the more integrated the regional trade agreement is, the more the individual countries that are signatories to the regional trade agreement lose sovereignty. They hand over some of their sovereign roles to institutions of these regional trade agreements.
Mhm.
The fourth is economic union. An economic union has the characteristics of a common market, and it harmonizes members' industrial, regional, transport, fiscal, and monetary policies. A full economic union also includes a monetary union with a common currency. As discussed, 20 out of 27 EU member states are currently part of the Economic and Monetary Union, or EMU, with adoption of the euro as their common currency. So this really highlights the loss of sovereignty that can come from an economic union. In this case, countries, 20 out of the 27 EU member states have adopted one single currency. Obviously, this means that these individual countries will no longer have a central bank, and they can't independently set a monetary policy. And then the shared, excuse me?
Oh, sorry. I just said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, oh, when you said the central bank. Sorry.
Okay. So the shared, the countries give up their sovereignty to have a national central bank, and therefore the ability to make monetary policy and indeed fiscal policy, because there has to be a convergence of fiscal policy. That is the level of deficits each country is allowed to maintain under an economic union. Because if different member states maintain disparate fiscal policy, then it will be hard to evaluate how strong the currency is, and then investors will lose confidence in the currency, and that will be a disservice to members of the economic union who are otherwise running a healthy economy. So others have also argued, I should add, that an economic union with a fiscal and monetary policies that are shared, that it can sometimes create a structural imbalance. Consider Europe as an example, where the largest economy in the European Union, Germany, has a lot of comparative advantage and competitive advantage indeed in high-tech manufacturing. It has BMW, it has Mercedes, it has Volkswagen Auto Group, which includes Audi, Lamborghini, it has Siemens, and it has a number of other engineering firms. So Germany can certainly compete on quality with the rest of the world. But if you were to go further south in Europe and you were to go into Greece and you were to go into Portugal and you were to go into Spain, as an example, they may not have the same levels of technical sophistication as Germany. But all things being equal, countries under this circumstance will try to compete by price, by value. So sometimes countries can choose to make their currency a little bit less valuable. That way they can, their goods will be competitively priced. And consumers may choose on balance to consume from them because of the value that comes with buying their product. But when you share this, when Greece and Portugal and other southern European countries share the same currency, which is the euro with Germany, they lose their ability to do that. So others have argued that it can create structural imbalances, but I still think that that Southern Europeans will say that on balance, they're better off being in the European Union, which is why they continue to be a member. So the fifth regional trade agreement is political union. A political union has the characteristics of an economic union and also harmonizes members' foreign and defense policies. A fully developed political union is more like a federal political system and an agreement among sovereign states. So, generally speaking, two countries that have the characteristics of a political union would be the United Arab Emirates, and to a lesser, maybe a similar extent, or at least a not dissimilar extent, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, where there are indeed four constituent parts to the UK. There is, of course, the country of England, there is the country of Wales, there is the country of Scotland, and then there is Northern Ireland. So there are four constituent parts that make up the United Kingdom of Great Britain. And of course, these four constituent parts often compete as individual countries and against each other in international competitions, such as the World Cup, the Olympics, and other sporting and other international engagements. So it is important to note that these stages of integrations are models that do not fully describe reality. So they are models with fixed definitions. But many regional agreements do not fully fit into these neat boxes, and that's important to point out. For instance, USMCA as an example, USMCA again is US, Mexico, Canada, is at stage one as a foreign trade agreement. But its provisions also require more openness towards foreign investment, identified with stage 3, which is a common market. Furthermore, regional trade agreements in the global south that describe themselves as customs union or common market have not actually reached those levels of integration. Free trade agreements are much more common than customs union because they do not require difficult negotiations over a common external tariff. Although these stages are only models, they do, however, provide a general guidance to the process by which states become more integrated, This is especially true for the European Union, the most advanced of the regional trade agreements. Coming full circle, let us conclude by examining the theoretical perspectives between regionalism and international political economy, IPE. In some cases, multilateralism and regionalism are competing approaches to trade. Whereas multilateralism contributes to global trade liberalization, regionalization may divide the world into competing trade blocs. However, open regionalism can break down national trade barriers and serve as a stepping stone rather than an obstacle to global free trade. Therefore, regional trade agreements following open regionalization abolishes barriers on substantially all trade within the regional trade agreement and lowers trade barriers to outsiders. It is also helpful to acknowledge there are sources of conflict between countries in regional trade agreements, and these include especially these two: reduction of economic sovereignty and independence of economic policies. And this can be very contentious. People tend to be very passionate about the independence and the sovereignty of their country. This is what could be said to be what colored the United Kingdom's vote to exit the European Union. In particular, the free movement of labor. So when Britain was in the European Union, a Polish person can choose, wake up one morning, pack up their family and choose to relocate to the United Kingdom, as would a British citizen could also choose to go to Poland, and indeed other parts of the European Union. The overall sentiment within the British population, at least at the time that the referendum to exit Brexit was held, or exit the European Union was held, was that Britain was losing more than it was gaining from being a member state of EU. That has proven largely to be not true. But yet, you can see how the loss of sovereignty can engender so much passion within a country, which is in part what makes regional trade agreements beyond a free trade area quite difficult to negotiate. The other main source of tension is unequal levels of human and physical infrastructure, in particular, transportation network, unequal access to capital to finance trade, and lack of regulatory coherence in non-common market agreements can lead to conflict between countries in a regional trade agreement. So if two countries are in a regional trade, two or more countries, of course, would have to be, by necessity, have to be in a regional trade agreement. If one country has a more efficient transportation network, you can see how that country would be quicker to get its goods and services to market more efficiently, and all things being equal, perhaps at a cheaper price point, therefore offering it a competitive advantage. So, and also the levels of skill within each individual, within the labor force in each individual country can influence the kinds of industry that the country is able to attract. Crucially, the ability to finance growth. You have to have capital to build the infrastructure. You have to have capital to build the schools, equip the schools, get the right kinds of lecturers and professors and scientists and researchers to translate and transfer these skills and knowledge to your labor force. So again, access to capital can be a barrier to countries getting a sense that they are fully enjoying the benefits of a regional trade agreement. So these are just a few of the challenges that come with. And in saying this also concludes our three-part series. And for next week, our focus will be on multinational corporations. So MNCs, multinational corporations, would be what we're going to be looking at next week. And with that, I am going to stop the formal lecture part of today's office hour and lecture and take classes as questions as necessary.